Hello there, this is Greg Johnson making, and I'm making Gaslands terrain. We don't actually have a working doorbell. That was for dramatic effect. So, Gaslands, off the top of my head, is a tabletop game of post-apocalyptic vehicular mayhem, designed to be played with toy cars like Matchbox and Hot Wheel cars, allowing players to ram, skid and race their way through the wreckage of a burnt-out Earth. So think Mad Max. You get a toy car and you modify it with spikes and mesh and rust, and then you race the cars against each other. And my buddy Chris Lackey has been playing it with his kids. You need some, we don't need, but it's good to have some road sections and some gates to go through for the game. And so we had a crafting day.
I got up at an normal hour, but you two, your little crafting buddy.
It's Christmas!
It's so cute!
Okay. So welcome to the crafting buffet.
Yeah.
So what do we have here? Hazard tape.
Oh, nice.
Letters for your gates. Those are straight things and tubes, pipes. Those are round things like tyres and hubcaps and stuff,
Yep.
general junk. You can have all this if that's any use.
Wow,
Because
okay.
I had like a toy car park.
Yeah,
But they're yours. Those cars are all yours, a couple of buses. These are too big, but you can harvest just the tyres off them. I don't need them. We've got sandpaper, cardboard, wallpaper, which is quite nice texture for the ground if the sandpaper's a bit smooth. Lego, sort of crafting struts, which seem right to me. Some Lego oil barrels, which I'm going to let you use for some fun like that. This is an idea I've had for riveting. It's actually a strip of suede with rivets all the way along, or studs, and I think it would make good rivets. This I thought was perfect for you.
Whoa.
It's stuff for tiling, but I could just cut it down into just that, so it's one row of triangles for gates.
For gates, yeah.
Cardboard for blocks of stuff. Got some angle if you need to sort of tidy up a corner. This is a bit of crepe that I thought might make a nice ramp. It's very chunky and it's hard to cut, but you could put a bit of mesh on it or something. Speaking of mesh, there's some mesh.
Nice.
Various gauges of wire. These are little resin cast pieces from when I do my Red Dwarf picture frames.
Oh, right, yeah. Those look great.
So they're just pre-cast greebly, greebly bits. Lots of wood, wooden cubes, sturdy things, thick cork for feet and bases and stuff. I went through all my recycled food, my food packaging, and I cut out lots and lots of grill,
I like this texture.
grid mesh. That's that's fly mesh.
Great.
Which is good scale. It's very small scale, but that's good scale. Paints and glues, sand, primer, brown spray paint, silver spray paint, pebbles. What's the word? Gravel.
Gravel.
Sand, quinoa, obviously, to taste, and a barrel of Lego, which you can use like it's going out of style, because I've got loads.
Let's do it.
Happy crafting day.
Yay! Oh.
Probably not short about anything for a hug. So, what are we doing? Chris is making road tiles. Sorry if any of this information is repeated throughout the video, but Chris is making road tiles, and we thought of using vinyl floor tiles, which are a foot square, and I thought maybe were sticky enough on the bottom that you could put them sticky side up to attach the black and sand coloured sandpaper to make the roads, but they're not sticky enough. So Chris ended up using carpet tape, super strong cloth double-sided tape to attach the sandpaper, then some super glue down the edges, and I am trimming down these long struts which are for holding the edges of tiles in place and just have a nice zigzag. So because I had a limited amount of 5mm square dowel, I'm putting square dowel down one side and coffee stir sticks down the other, just to make struts. And I had exactly enough to make 8, because we want 4 gates. A start, a finish, and a 1 and a 2. There may be more gates later, because you can do it with 4 gates, but you set out a track and you have to go through the gates for each round of the game. So that's what we're doing. I'm using lots of soda glue, and Chris is making templates for the road markings. So you join me here. It's 11:30. Chris arrived about 9. What are you doing there, bud?
I am painting lines on roads.
Classic.
Yeah.
Gone for the yellow down the middle, white down the outside.
There seems to be a variance on what countries do what, and I have just decided to commit to this because I like the look of it.
Commit. I like the yellow down the middle. I think that's American.
Yeah.
As are you. I love American.
I am
things.
American. I am, yeah.
And I'm making gate legs, coffee stir stick, square dowel, and I'm making feet out of Lego. It doesn't refocus, but I'm making feet out of Lego. Nearly lunchtime. It's brunch time. That was a brunch time update.
All right.
These industrial struts, I initially brought down 4 of these, but eventually revealed I did have 8. And I put them all into this project because they're kind of like gold dust. I just think they're so nice. So they are knockoff Lego. They're not legit Lego. We'll call it cheapo. They're cheapo blocks. Apparently there's quite a vocal group of people online who, if you take Lego out of circulation, if you fuse Lego or destroy it in some way so it can't be played with by future generations, people get mad at you. So this is cheapo, this is not Lego. And I'm making, what I'm rather proud of is these right angle brackets on either end of them to attach them to the top of the struts out of, I bought a load of oblique bricks which have the 45-degree sort of ramp, just in black and grey, so if they scratch they'll be black and grey underneath, which is good. And then a load of cappers, as you can see there, the square, just a plain tile which covers the nubbins. So you don't have to denude them manually using your clippers and cover the holes up. You can just stick these cappers on and then no one would even know. So here I'm putting super glue onto the nubs, the pegs on the end of the strut, covering that with an oblique one, sticking to the back of that a downwards facing oblique one, and just capping them off with a square capper tile. And anyway the super glue squeezes out in the join between the bricks, baking soda, and it's just a line of welding, crude welding. So it's very liberating to make something that's really crusty and rusty. It's also liberating to be using very cheap super glue, not the good stuff. Like for the sand on Chris's roads, I would normally use PVA glue, some sort of white glue, and sprinkle it with sand and then leave it. But I was like, let's just slosh on some super glue down the edges and chuck some sand on there because it's quick turnover. And then here initially I'm using hot glue to attach the struts to the underside of the brackets, and it did squeeze out through the triangular hole and burn my thumb sort of 3 times. 12:30 lunch break. So, Mr. Lackey, how do you think the inaugural crafting date, I hope the first of many, is going so far?
Outstanding.
Outstanding.
I can't believe how quickly and how well you work. He's almost finished the gates entirely. He's just blocked them out, and I've gotten the roads sort of in a position.
Your roads are beautiful.
Just painted these and tried to get them lined up so that this goes to there on each of them so that they look somewhat like they belong together.
Yeah.
I did some complicated math.
We started the day with a tester. Have you got the tester with the sand on?
The tester with the sand is down here.
Oh. There, nice.
So it's on these floor tiles.
Vinyl floor tiles, yeah.
And then there's sandpaper with sand, extra sand glued onto it. That's ripped to kind of give it a more jagged edge.
Yeah. Are we going to add some tufts?
We're going to add some tufts, add some rocks.
Maybe
dust. Some dust, a dead coyote, I don't know.
Yeah. See what we've got.
Just to kind of liven it up a bit. But we'll lay these out on a tabletop and just have some cars race and shoot and crash into one another.
Great. And then to reinforce this join, once they're hot glued on, you can just make it an enclosed rectangle, so there's a thin strip of road between the feet. But I wanted Chris's roads to just be able to pass under the gates, and so one of them is maybe that. But this is post-apocalyptic, there's no health and safety sort of, you know, they're straight enough. But to reinforce these right angles, so the struts don't just come off the top beam, I'm now putting 2 block bricks. Well, not now, but in a moment I will be putting 2 block bricks up into those right angles as well to reinforce the inside of the join, because at this stage there's a palpable flimsiness. So here I'm sticking on feet made from, again, an oblique block with a 2 nubbin block on top of it to make it taller, and then a 2 nubbin capper tile to just cover up the dots. And here building up the feet, so I've stuck on some barrels, some wooden cubes. Chris brought a little 3D printed fence which I cut in half. I think in future I would put like an A-shaped foot at the bottom of each strut, parallel with the road, just so it doesn't have back and forth rocking. But the bigger and heavier the bottoms are, the feet, the less these things wobble or fall over. And here, as I said, what I'm doing is there are two nubbin holes, sockets, in the underside of these brackets that I can just fit a 2 block. And there was the moment I realised that if you fasten lots of Lego together, you can sand them all as one and then break them all up again. So yeah, I'm just sticking a reinforcing block into the undersides of all these right angles because I want that joint to be hearty. The cat's howling. Yes, so that's a little 2 block and just lots of super glue, and if the super glue comes out, you just baking soda it. Because soda glue, it'll do. Right, these, love these. These are for making cake icing. That one I'm holding there is just made of PVA glue. So I filled this silicone tile mold with PVA glue and then went on holiday for a week. And it does warp a bit. So PVA glue and wood glue aren't the best things to use because they shrink. So when you come back from holiday, your tiles are kind of warped and curvy. But I could snip off just the row of rivets. I even wrapped one while it cured around a cardboard tube and I've made a pillar. Isn't that good? But yeah, so you get these tiles. They're thin between, so you can actually just snap them off. And you've got a slightly flexible, pre-textured, riveted panel. Isn't that good? So I'm using those to make the panels that go across the beams that will say start, finish, 1 and 2. So here Chris is doing curves, so he's going to make 8 straights and 4 curves, so you can make a loop road circuit. And we just put 2 of the straight road things at right angles and then found things around the kitchen that were the right curve. So I think the inner curve we drew around the bottom of my can of Dr. Pepper Zero, sorry. And then the outer edge was really big, so it was the splash hood thing we have in the microwave. You know, big plastic thing that you just put over stuff you're heating, because no dinner plate was big enough. And then Chris is sticking the vinyl tiles sticky side up, but not sticky enough. So sticking them onto black sandpaper with carpet tape, and then the outer edges are made from torn sand-coloured sandpaper. Here I'm making my signs from fridge magnet letters, because I didn't have enough of my little wooden letters. Yes. So I'm putting hot glue in the back of the hollow fridge magnet letters, which gets very hot, and just sticking them on to little ripped off, textured, pre-textured, pre-riveted panels. So what have we got for show and tell?
Well, we've got these tiles here. They're not quite finished yet, but the foundation is there. There's 8 of these and 4 curves to make a loop.
So we made 4 gates.
We did not. Greg made 4 gates.
Chris was very encouraging. So that's the start. It's fridge magnets.
Oh, it's so good.
They're a bit wobbly, but building up the feet is really nice. So I've got some little Lego barrels, just some wooden cubes. We decided these are like tractor tires. They're not in scale, but they're big tires. And the heavier you make the feet, the more they don't fall over. I was going to use wooden letters, but I was out of S's because of my Nostromo sign. So these are fridge magnet letters. I was going to put rivets, you know, lines of rivets.
Yeah.
But they could be holes, so it looks like they were light bulbs.
Yeah.
So, and also holes are easier.
They're much easier to
rivets.
do. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And then these I've just stuck on 2 of the little cast plates I showed earlier as diamonds, just 2 squares. And I'm going to buy some fridge magnet numbers for when we return.
Part 2.
Part 2.
Yeah.
Interregnum. Let's have an interregnum, why not? That was November me, this is late February me. I've actually had a birthday since then, so I'm technically a year older. Wonders of continuity, I've put the same clothes on and I've got the same bad lighting. So in the interregnum between days, I had some things to do that I thought Chris shouldn't have to watch me do. I drilled all my holes in my fridge magnet letters. That's kind of a boring job. It's a lot of clearing out because it's hot glue in there, gets a bit sticky, and there's no point wasting some quality crafting day time doing that sort of job. Then this strip of suede, strip of studded suede. This is how I do rivets now. They're big rivets and they're chunky, but this might be my breakthrough method. These are some cog-shaped... We don't just stick cogs on things, you know, I won't use the S word, it gets too much criticism, I think. But yeah, if you like it, stick a cog on it, why not? Just lots of cog-shaped stickers for some nice low relief. Give me a very low sense of relief. Then this is what bill making stuff would call crusted. It's some tile grout, some cayenne pepper, I think, Mod Podge, and a bit of beige paint. So you get a thick texture goop, which I'm pummeling and pouncing into all the crevices of the metal bits. I'm thinking of like a bridge, like a suspension bridge that's been painted a billion times. And avoiding the smaller objects at the foot of the towers because they're not so crusty. And speaking of crusty, for me the perfect tiger bread should have a... Prime time, repeat, it is prime time, this is not a drill. I can see why I normally put some black paint in my crusted, because it's these things, once the Mod Podge goes clear and dries, they look like they're just encrusted in sort of vomit coloured. It's bad. Step 1 of day 2 is we've made some concrete from sand and Mod Podge, and we're just finger spreading it onto the sandy bits down either sides of the roads, because where the sand was held onto the sandpaper with glue, they were not the same colour. The Mod Podge concrete isn't going to be the same colour either, so I'm going to give it a fresh skin of sand all over later on. Need to streamline that process. Rust, these have been hit not just with black primer but also with some brown spray paint, so they're slightly brown, and then here I'm stippling on a mixture of burnt umber and orange, and then you can't go too orange with rust really, so then just stippling on some pure like Satsuma tangerine orange. The brighter the better, I think, with rust. I think the bolder it is, the more realistic it looks. So here Chris is putting some of that sand Mod Podge concrete onto the corners. Again, this gets darker as it dries, not lighter, so these really don't match. What we should have done at this stage is just cover the whole sandy area, but we didn't, and I'll do it later, so it'll be fine in the end. Just stick with me. Ooh, there's me and my friend. Update. Beep, 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 beep. So, we've had lunch.
We have?
Pizza this time.
Yes, it's delicious.
What are you up to?
I am doing a base coat with speed paint using broadsword silver. I was going to do it in different colors, but I've decided to do a speed paint metallic base, and then I will do the colors on top of it and do the rusting effects after that. And look at this. This is... Oh,
whoa! So I've done a rust pass, as you've seen, and then I've picked out some colours. I've got some blue barrel, some lead belcher, it's a nice dull silver, some sort of army green that I mixed up, a kind of pistachio-y green.
Delicious.
And a bit of a warm red, some red barrels, because I thought rust, then paint individual items, and I think now it's time for a silver dry brush all over because it's all metallic.
Yeah.
Then a dark wash if it's too silver, and then I've got some little bits of chains and maybe the odd tuft.
Yeah.
And we've got about 2 hours.
That'll be great.
Colours. Let's not be scared of colours. Just go for it. Just really go for it. Although this is a sort of stippled heavy dry brush, so the layers underneath always show through. So everything I'm doing here, the layer underneath has to show through. Otherwise, why would you do it? Painting is about what you can see. There's some wisdom. Speaking of a dry brush, this is lead belcher, which is a pewter dark silver. Am I overdoing it on the word start? Yes, I am. But yeah, you do your rust, your brown, then your rust, and then a dry brush of silver for some metal highlights. Here Chris has done, I think it was broadsword silver as he said, then stipple on some sort of magenta purple, and this is Agrax Earthshade for a brown wash on his little car. Bit of Militarum green contrast paint, a military green box with a cog on. What are you doing there, bud?
I'm doing some layers.
Oh yeah.
So I'm trying to wash.
That's better.
Yeah, so I'm trying to wash the layer with the fine pigment.
Great.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Absolutely. And after all these metallic passes, some flat black, love this stuff, very, very matte black to make the tyres look rubbery, and then a dust pass. So I'm scraping off with a craft knife, this is a tan coloured chalk pastel, and then dusting it all over with a fluffy makeup brush to make it look deserty, deserted. So it's nearly 4 PM. Got to say goodbye to Chris.
Yeah.
This is, we think, the end of Gaslands terrain.
Yeah, I think
it's a 2-day project.
Yeah.
So what do you think are the benefits, Chris, of a craft day?
Obviously, one of the benefits is that you've got cool terrain to play your games with.
Right.
The more subtle aspect to it is the companionship, the camaraderie, the sense of community, feeling like you belong, that you have friends, people that care about you.
Feel understood.
Feel
We've had some deep chats.
We have had some
We
very
haven't filmed
deep
them because they're private. But we've talked about our problems.
We did talk about our problems. But yeah, this is a great thing to do. Having the excuse of building some terrain for some games. It's an excuse.
This is the excuse.
Yeah.
But this is
why we're really doing it.
This is real. So there you go. Friendship. Parting is such sweet sorrow, but what is also sweet is thinking I'm in the mood now. So even though Chris is gone, I'm sitting with my dirty down rust and doing a nice rust pass. Sit your dirty down rust in a cup of hot water. It activates much better when it's warm. Give it a really, really good stir because it's full of sticky, chunky stuff in the bottom. And then I'm just running it down, pushing it into all the cracks and crevices where I think water would gather. Rusty in the desert. Does that make sense? I mean, Mad Max stuff's rusty, isn't it? It's wet and dry. Like sandpaper, you can get wet and dry sandpaper, and this is sandpaper. There was a connection there, there was a segue of some kind. And several days later, after a whole week of a whole other adventure that you'll see in my next video, this is that skin of sand. Because as you can see, the Mod Podge sand stuck onto the sand-coloured sandpaper don't match, not at all. So this is PVA and water, because it's cheaper than Mod Podge, and I'm just sprinkling on sand. Then I did some tufts, and then this is a final dust pass with a grey and a brown and tan coloured chalk, and again a big makeup brush. It'll look too much when you first brush it like that, but keep brushing and it kind of comes off. But that's the trick. Dust is the trick to realism. Realism. Is it realistic? Let's find out now as we take a look at the finished thing. Industrial, grotty, very nice. What will the next crafting day project be? I haven't decided, but there will be more. It's good for the soul. Speaking of things that are good for the soul, this YouTube channel recommendation is Strange Studies. It's more of a podcast recommendation, but not to bang on about it, but if you don't know Chris Lackey's podcast, Strange Studies of Strange Stories, they've been my favourite podcast for many, many years. That's how I met Chris. He was my favourite podcast host and we became friends. If you like science fiction, speculative fiction, horror, and you want to feel well read without doing any reading, then listen to this podcast because you get a new short story every week, sometimes read by me. They have great guests on. They've had Patton Oswalt and Jeremy Dyson from the League of Gentlemen and Jamie Britton, and just brilliant people. And yeah, give it a go. It's a great, educational, funny podcast. 1,000 Patreon welcomes to Chris Howarth, Chris Craft and Jack Edwards Fox. Thank you also to Jack Edwards Fox for the sprues. The third Jack who provided me with sprues for my Borg cube. There were 3 Jacks. That's weird, right? It's weird. But yeah, love you guys. Bit of an influx of patrons and how joyous that is. Next up very soon will be a puppet and costume video. I had an exciting week to do with the show Nightmare Live. Do you remember the TV show Nightmare? That, a lot of fun. And then the Big Bot Bash. I'm doing it, I'm bashing. Last year I missed the Big Bot Bash by this much and was told next year. Next year, buddy. And that's now. Next year is now. Now is next year. And I'm bashing by the end of March. If you've watched this far, post the word interregnum below. Thanks for watching, lots of love from me, and I'll see you soon.